Larry Kenon was a very underrated player during the 70s. He was a 6'9" power forward, but he had the speed and mid-range jumper needed to play the three. He could crash the glass, score on the post, run the floor, and even play solid perimeter defense, as he was always in the passing lanes looking for steals. His career was a little under the radar as he played with some of the best wings in basketball history in Julius Erving and Gervin, although at the time, a lot of people said that his game was very similar to Dr. J's. For some reason, his career fell off after he left the Spurs, but Larry Kenon in his prime was an amazing player to watch. Welcome to PZ Hoops, and let's get down to it. Larry was born on December 13th, 1952 in Birmingham, Alabama. He played his high school ball at Allman before playing at Amarillo College, a JUCO in Texas. After 2 years there, he transferred to Memphis State University in 1972. The Tigers already had NBA talent on the team with Larry Finch and Ronnie Robertson, but the addition of Kenon made them elite. Finch averaged 24 points a game, being named a second-team All-American. Kenon dominated in his first year at Division I, averaging 20 points and leading the Missouri Valley Conference with 17 rebounds a game, earning the Conference Player of the Year as well. Memphis' star trio were members of the All-Conference team this year as the Tigers finished 24-6. They faced South Carolina in the first game of the tournament as the Gamecocks feature Alex English, Brian Winters, and Mike Dunleavy. Kenon put up 34 points, 20 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 blocks as the Tigers won by 14. They faced Kansas State next, winning by 20, shooting 60% as a team. Finch was the star of the show with 32 points, while Kenon was in foul trouble most of the game, so he had a modest 14 points and 7 rebounds. Memphis faced off against Providence in their first Final Four in school history with their 3 stars Ernie DiGregorio, Kevin Statham, and Marvin Barnes. Memphis won by 13 as their trio all scored over 20 points, but Kenon had the best game with 28 points, 22 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks. UCLA stood in the way of a national title for the Tigers, but the Bruins were stacked with NBA talent as they had Bill Walton, Jamal Wilkes, Dave Meyer, and Sven Nader. Kenon was solid in this game with 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists, but Memphis had no answer for Bill Walton as he scored 44 points on 21 of 22 shooting along with 13 rebounds as the Bruins won by 21. Kenon was named to the All-Tourney and All-Region teams. Larry decided to go to the ABA even though he was drafted in the 3rd round by the Pistons in the 1973 NBA draft. Larry signed with the New York Nets, who had just traded for the best player in the league in Julius Erving, as the two would make an elite forward tandem. The Nets had some great supporting pieces as well. Billy Paultz was a walking double-double who could play solid defense. Brian Taylor was an elite perimeter defender and three-point shooter, while John Williamson was a strong guard who could score in bunches. Larry dropped 18 points and 11 rebounds in his debut against the Pacers. 10 days later, he dropped 18 points, 19 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in a win against the Stars. He dropped 13 points and grabbed a season-high 22 rebounds in the December 19th win against the Colonels. Larry's consistent play earned him an All-Star appearance, joining Erving and Paultz. He averaged 16 points and 11 rebounds as a rookie. Erving had an MVP season this year, averaging 27.5 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 2.5 steals, and 2.5 blocks. The Nets had the best defensive rating along with the second fastest pace in the game as they finished 55-29, facing Dr. J's former team, the Virginia Squires, in the division semifinals. They easily got past Virginia in 5 games as Kenon averaged 17-10 in his first playoff series. The Kentucky Colonels and their trio of Issel, Dampier, and Gilmore were next, but New York swept them as only 1 game was decided by single digits. Kenon averaged 14.5 points and 10 rebounds. The Nets faced the Utah Stars in the ABA Finals. Utah had a well-balanced attack featuring players like Jimmy Jones, Willie Wise, Ron Boone, Rick Mount, Zumbo Beatty, and Gerald Govin. New York was simply too much for them though, as they won in 5 games, securing the title. Although Erving was the backbone of the team, Larry was the perfect sidekick, unafraid to do the dirty work, as he averaged 16 points and 14 rebounds. The Nets really didn't change much in 1974, but they didn't need to. Larry became more involved in the offense this year, scoring his then career high on January 8th against the Pacers with 37 points along with 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and 6 steals. Larry averaged 19 points and 11 rebounds, while Brian Taylor led the league in steals with nearly 3 a game. The Nets had 4 All-Stars as Erving won his 2nd straight MVP. New York finished 58-26 as they were tied with the Colonels for the first seed in the Eastern Division. In the tiebreaker game, Larry put up 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists, but the Nets would lose by 9 as Artis Gilmore put up 28 points and 33 rebounds. Since they lost the tiebreaker game, the Nets were now the 2nd seed, facing the St. Louis Spirits in the semifinals. The Spirits were led by Marvin Barnes, Freddie Lewis, and Maurice Lucas. Larry had his best playoff series so far, averaging 21 points and 13 rebounds, but the Spirits would win in 5 games. The writing was on the wall for the ABA in 1975, as the San Diego Sails and the Utah Stars both folded, as well as the Baltimore Claws, as they ended before they could even start playing. The league had been cut down to just 7 teams by the end of the season. Another change was that Larry was playing for a different team, as he was traded to the Spurs in the offseason for Sven Nader. He now joined a team with 2 elite scorers in George Gervin and James Silas. He also saw a familiar face in Billy Paultz. Coaching legend George Karl was a rotation player on his team as well. Kenon kept up his consistent play, scoring another career high with 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 assists in a win against Denver. Larry averaged 19 points and 11 rebounds this season. James Silas was second in MVP voting behind Dr. J, while Billy Paultz led the league in blocks with 3 a game. Gervin had finally established himself as a star this season, as San Antonio had the second best offense in the league, finishing 50-34, facing the New York Nets in the semifinals. Larry, Billy, James, and George were all All-Stars this year, with Larry even competing in the first ever slam dunk contest. The Nets and Spurs played a tough 7-game series, but the Nets prevailed. Larry averaged 21 points and 11 rebounds in the series. San Antonio was one of the 4 teams that were absorbed into the NBA after the merger in 1976, so Larry had a chance to prove himself against even better talent, and he responded very well. The Spurs pretty much had the same team going into their first NBA season, but Larry stepped up his offensive game even more. After a modest 10-point showing in his first NBA game, he dropped 41 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 steals, and 2 blocks against the Suns in the next game. Larry dropped his first career triple-double on December 26 against Kansas City when he dropped 29 points, 15 rebounds, and an NBA record 11 steals. This record still remains today, although Kendall Gill tied it in 1999. He dropped another career high with 43 points, 20 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals against Kansas City. Larry averaged 22 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals, while Gervin averaged 23 points a game. The Spurs had the best offense in the league, but they had the worst defense, so they finished 44-38, securing a first-round matchup with the Celtics, as the Spurs were assigned to the Eastern Conference for some reason. The Celtics were still an elite team at this point, with their core of JoJo White, Sidney Wicks, Charlie Scott, Dave Cowens, and John Havlicek. The Spurs were easily handled in a 2-game sweep, as Larry averaged 17 points, 7.5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2.5 steals. In 1977, the Spurs signed ABA mainstays Louis Dampier and Jim Eakins. Larry continued his above-average play as he made his first NBA All-Star game, averaging 20.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 3 assists. George Gervin led the league in scoring with 27 points a game and was the runner-up for MVP to Bill Walton. The Spurs were basically a 2-man show at this point, as they had the second best offense, but their defense improved a little bit. The Spurs finished 52-30, and they faced the Washington Bullets in the first round, as they had an elite front court duo of Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes. They also had Bob Dandridge and Kevin Greavy. Larry dropped 22 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in the Game 1 win. He only scored 11 points on 4 of 16 shooting in the Game 2 loss. He dropped 37 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in Game 3, but they lost. Larry only scored a combined 36 points in the next 3 games, as the Spurs lost in 6. Larry had the best season of his career in 1978, as he averaged 22 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. He recorded another triple-double with 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists against the Clippers. He recorded 13 30-point games, along with 41 games with double-digit rebounds. George Gervin led the league in scoring again with 30 points a game, finishing second in MVP voting again behind Moses Malone. The Spurs were the best offense in the league again, but as usual, their defense was lacking. They finished 48-34 as Gervin and Kenon faced their former teammate in Julius Erving in the 76ers. This was a hard-fought 7-game series as the Spurs got 20 points a game from Gervin, Kenon, and Silas. In Game 7, Kenon, Gervin, and Mike Green combined for 80 points as the Spurs won by 3, as Larry averaged 23 points, 10 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 1.5 steals in the series. The Spurs faced the Bullets again in the conference finals, but this was another hard-fought series, going to 7 games. The Spurs were up 3-1, but they let the Bullets come back. Gervin had 42 and Kenon had 23 and 11 in Game 7, but the Spurs would lose by 2. San Antonio went through 2 coaches in 1979 as Doug Moe was fired after a 33-33 start, being replaced by Bob Bass. Larry and George continued their elite offensive production this season. Larry had his 3rd career triple-double this season against the Pacers with 27 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists. In the last game of the season, Larry put up his career high of 51 points along with 7 rebounds against the Pistons. Larry averaged 20 points a game for the 4th consecutive year as the Spurs had their usual occurrence of an elite offense and terrible defense, finishing 41-41 as the San Antonio Spurs faced the Houston Rockets in the Eastern Conference playoffs. The Rockets featured Moses Malone, Calvin Murphy, Rudy Tomjanovich, and Rick Barry, although he was well past his prime by this point. Larry had an unusually bad series as the Rockets swept the Spurs in 3 games. He shot 29% for the series, with averages of only 9 points and 4 rebounds. In 1980, Larry was a free agent, so he signed with the Bulls. Chicago was 30-52 the previous season, but they had a decent team, with their main players being Artis Gilmore, Reggie Theus, and Dave Greenwood. Larry slid down to the small forward, but his minutes were the lowest of his career up to that point, at about 28 a game. The Bulls under Jerry Sloan ran a slower-paced, more team-based offense, so Larry didn't get the shot attempts he had at San Antonio. His run-and-gun style of play didn't really fit the scheme that the Bulls were running, so minutes were hard to come by. He still had 18 20-point games and 3 30-point games, including 4 double-doubles, but he averaged a then career-low 14 points along with a then career-low 5 rebounds. Chicago was an average team at this point, as their offense and defense was middle of the pack, but they finished with a 45-37 record. Artis Gilmore led the league in field goal percentage at 67%, as he and Reggie Theus made the All-Star game. Chicago faced the Knicks in the first round. The Knicks were an above-average defensive team with players like Michael Ray Richardson, Bill Cartwright, and Campy Russell. Jerry Sloan opted to bring Larry off the bench in Game 1 as he had 6 points and 6 rebounds in 23 minutes. The Bulls would win by 10 as Artis put up 13 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 blocks. Game 2 was a lot closer as the Bulls needed overtime to squeak out a 1-point win. Chicago faced the Larry Bird Celtics in the second round, and it was pretty clear that they were overmatched as they were swept. But Larry only played 18 minutes a game this series, averaging 7.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. In 1981, the Bulls drafted Orlando Woolridge out of Notre Dame. Chicago went through 3 coaches this year as their offense was extremely limited. The Bulls tried out 3 different guys to play the starting small forward spot in Larry, Orlando, and James Wilkes. Larry only played 60 games this season, making 30 starts. In his first start of the season, on February 9th, he dropped 22 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. He averaged 7 points and 3 rebounds on 46% shooting, his lowest field goal percentage since his rookie year. Artis Gilmore was still effective into his early 30s, averaging 18 and 10 with nearly 3 blocks a game, while leading the league in field goal percentage again at 65%. The Bulls were struggling this year though, as they finished 34 and 48, missing the playoffs. 1982 would be Larry's last season in the NBA, as he would bounce around a couple of teams this year. He was cut by the Bulls 5 games into the season before signing with the Warriors, playing 11 games with them in a limited bench role. Kenon was then traded to the Cavaliers, where he had a decent role, even starting a few games, as his season high was 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 steal. The Cavaliers were in full rebuild mode though, and Kenon was released on March 20th as he would retire at the age of 30. Larry retired as a 3-time ABA All-Star, an ABA champion, and a 2-time NBA All-Star. His career averages were 17.2 points, 8.9 rebounds, and 2.2 assists. Larry was an athletic two-way forward who was a great sidekick on some teams with all-time greats. He did the little things great, as his blend of athleticism, shooting, rebounding, and perimeter defense was very unique for its time. Although his prime was short, Larry Kenon was one of the most exciting players to watch when he was on. Thank you guys, I really appreciate all the support for this channel, man. You guys are really showing love on these videos, man. Like, you know, I'm glad my hard work is paying off. And I appreciate everyone who watched these videos. Leave a like, drop a comment on who you want me to do a video on next. I'm working on a Lakers legend right now. That's all I'm going to give you about the next guy. I'm working on a Lakers legend. That's all I can tell you. Thank you. Please be safe. Stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.